Wanting to embark on a new project, but feeling a bit scared as to how do I go about doing what I need to do. I've been in that same place, and oftentimes, in fact, it's a current reality. Each and every leader will find themselves having to do something, but at the same time battling with fear. And today's podcast is definitely about that. We're going to be having a conversation on doing it scared. We'll be talking about the role that courage plays in the life of a leader. I'm so glad that you've joined us and that you're part of a community of leaders who are intentional and purposeful about their growth. I'm super thrilled on today's podcast episode to be joined by a phenomenal leader, an incredible voice in our generation, a father, a husband, a leader in the community of faith, a businessman, a philanthropist, amongst an array of incredible things that he's doing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined in studio today by Jacob Msipha.
Man, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And of course, greetings to your audience there at home. And I hope this is going to be a great discussion.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored that you take time and to add value to our podcast community. I know you'll be a perfect fit because you've done incredible things and you continue to do incredible things.
Thank you.
And podcast family, I encourage you, get your notebook, or if you're using your phone, if you're driving. Fortunately, we do have episode notes which you'll be able to download and be able to work through this content. It's one that's going to take your leadership to the next level.
Sure.
Maybe Mfundisi too, Mfundisi, because part of what you do is being a pastor. Maybe just to tee it off, just maybe who are you? Who is Jacob Msipha, and what are some of the transitions that you've made in your leadership that have landed you where you currently are?
Sure. Yeah, of course. My name, obviously, Jacob Msipha, born and grew up in a small township called Butleng at Delmas, Mpumalanga. Strange enough, many people don't believe me when I say I'm from at Delmas. And I grew up there, went to school there locally, and interestingly enough, that's where actually I sort of started even suspecting that there must be something about me and the way that I do things, because I would be elected for almost everything, especially high school, and sort of I had to start from there and begin to navigate my way up and actively participating in any opportunity that I get. And of course, transitioning to me or eventually becoming a Christian, and eventually realizing that I'm called. Apparently, I'm supposed to be a pastor, and I started a church, and that's how I find myself where I am today. But it has been quite a very interesting journey for me. Quite a lot of things, different things that one had to be involved in, learn a lot, and I'm so grateful.
That's so beautiful. Maybe just to put you on the spot, something fun about you that most of the people might not know.
I'm not really sure. My kids think I think I'm funny, and they don't think I'm funny. Each time I try to entertain them at home, I try. When I'm at home, perhaps this is something that the listeners out there or the viewers out there wouldn't know about me. Out there when I'm in my leadership space, and I might be serious here and there, but at home I'm very crazy. I entertain them, I dance for them, I sing for them, I do all sorts of crazy things. The only downside of it is that my kids think I'm not funny.
That's fun. maybe just to also double click on the hats that you wear rather, because I know you lead in different spheres. You're a father, you're a husband, you're a pastor, you're a business person. How does now leadership apply in all these different spheres of leadership? Because I always say that leadership is not only contextual, it's not limited to leading as a pastor, but it has to do in leading yourself, leading your studies. How do you now begin to switch these different roles and what's the common denominator of leadership amongst all that you do?
Yeah, maybe starting with the common denominator. I strongly believe that if you want to lead effectively,
Yes.
First of all, you need to have a vision about your life, about your family, business, in whatever sphere where God has placed you as a leader. And I always say that even family or marriage is a sphere of leadership, and especially us as men, we are there. If you study the scriptures, they tell us that we are the head of our families.
Yes,
and I always say to people, we did not choose that role. We were given. So we must be excused for that, But it begins with a vision. What do you want to see out of your family, And I had to draw a picture of that even before I got married, to say, as soon as I get married, what kind of a family setup do I want? If for an example, I'm a pastor, what kind of a church, do I? So I have to have that picture and make every effort to go towards that. And of course, the most critical element in all of this is me as a person. What kind of a person do I want to be so that I can fit in all of those spheres, because for me, leadership is all about that. God identifies space for you, and you've got to be wired in a manner that when you come into that space, into that sphere, you fit in so well, and everything else around you will actually be impacted by you being there within that space. So it's all about that for me. It begins with a vision. What kind of a family do you want to be? If you want to lead like I lead, you correctly said, I'm a husband, that's leadership. I'm a father, that's leadership. I mean, now I'm leading teenagers, and both my kids are teenagers now, and that's a totally different sphere of leadership, because when I was leading them as kids, preteen years, and while they were toddlers, it was all in good. You tell them sit down, they sit, without asking a question. But now, when you say sit down, they say why, and you give them a reason, and they say, but no, I don't want to sit down, I want to do this. So you just need to then learn to say, okay, at this phase, what is it that I need to adjust so that I can lead effectively in this? But you have got to constantly work on yourself in all of these transitions.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
This is incredible. There's something you said which stood out to me, that you need to have a picture of what you want in whatever sphere: family, church, business, relationships.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who doesn't have a picture in their sphere of influence, where they just lack a picture of what they would want to become?
Yeah.
And I think this is what we see, where we've got a lot of child-headed families.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who are not fortunate or privileged, for lack of a better word, to be exposed to people like you and leaders that they aspire to become. So what would you say maybe to a younger leader who lacks this picture? Where can they start to create, begin painting this picture of what could be possible, or what could be in terms of whatever sphere of leadership, be it being a husband? You said, for example, as husbands, it's a role given to us, but here you are, you need to be a husband. You've never had the privilege of seeing the role of a father or a husband in a family, or maybe you come from a dysfunctional family. So how do you now begin to paint a picture that is unique to you, especially when you do not have anything like that within your radar?
Yeah, I think the first thing that one needs to do is just listen to that desire on the inside of you to become a great person. I strongly believe that all of us, we were wired to be great. It's just that other people don't listen to that thing in them that says, look, there's something great about you. So, and once that kicks in, you then begin to think outside of where you are. And you start exploring different avenues about yourself to say, the reality is one day you are going to be a husband. The reality is one day you are going to be a father. The reality is one day you are going to function in some space, whether you are employed. I believe even if you are employed, you are a leader. You know what I mean, in one way or the other. And that's a discussion for another day. And maybe you run your own business. And what you do is you then start feeding that craving, that desire, you start feeding it. And the best place to start for me is to start reading books, about those different spheres. If you say, one day I'm going to become a husband and I want to become a great husband for that matter, find books, that you can read. And in a way, then you can start picking up that, there's that guy there who so much looks like what I'm reading about.
Wow.
Let me, try and find my way and get closer to that person.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So that you can learn from them. Because in most cases, we grow up in environments that don't agree with where we want to be, where we aspire to be. And it's very important that you step out of that space where you are, which might be limited in terms of, examples closer to you, where some of us, you grew up maybe not in so much a stable family, stable home, but there are possibilities. If you start reading books, you listen to tapes, podcasts such as this, then they begin to inspire you, to show you a possible reality outside of where you are.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's incredible. Podcast family, I don't know about you, but that's pure gold. I keep saying this. If you've missed that part, just pause, go back for about 2-3 minutes. That's pure gold. You need to intentionally begin to carve out and listen to that inner desire that's calling you towards greatness.
Yeah.
And maybe now you've got phenomenal books which we'll talk to. You're an author. Part of what I forgot to mention is you're an incredible author.
Thank you.
I've been consuming your content, and there's one I just want to highlight, Arise and Build, where you take a leader from the Bible. I always say this, Guti, one of the greatest resources or libraries to glean leadership from is scripture. And you speak of Nehemiah, who rebuilt the walls. And I just want to glean and ask a question. How do you deal with criticism as a leader? Here is Nehemiah, he's building the walls, and he's building something that is not even for himself. I think sometimes that's where criticism hurts the most. You're doing something not for your own benefit, but it's something that's going to help the whole nation and help your family or help your business. But the very same people who you're trying to help are the ones who are saying, even if a fox walks on it,
this thing will just
it will just collapse. So how do you deal with Sanballat and Tobiah and criticism as a leader? Because I'm sure you've built incredible things. You've built an incredible family. You've built incredible ministries. You keep building. How does a leader go about dealing with criticism?
Sure. And I think for me, that's the main thing, But in any case, it begins with accepting that as a leader, you will always be criticized.
Okay.
I mean, if you are in leadership and you want to be nice and be loved by everybody, you are deceiving yourself. So the first thing to deal with here is to first accept the reality that in your entire leadership journey, you will be criticized. There's no leader that is loved by everybody. If you are loved by everybody, you are not leading. There's something that you are doing, but you are not leading. Let's make an example with Nelson Mandela. I mean, he's celebrated everywhere, all over the world. But yet, you still find people who will, criticize him to the ground, and they don't mind without shame, you know what I mean? Even though he was a phenomenal leader and he left a great legacy for some of us, at least that's how we look at it, you know what I mean? So, but for me, I think you also need to make sure that you because criticism for me is from outside, from outside in. So there has got to be a resistant force that you build on the inside of you that will counteract what is happening on the outside.
Come on.
So if on the inside of you build courage, you develop a thick skin. I always say that at some point as a leader, that's why in most cases God will first build a leader before a leader builds anything.
Wow.
God is more interested in building you than you interested in what you want to build. And that's why, leaders that last long are leaders that God will take on a journey, build you, through different seasons, challenges and circumstances, where God will build resilience from the inside of you, courage, boldness, and all of those things, so that, by the time criticisms come, the edge on the inside of you, the desire on the inside of you will silence those voices, because the vision is so much alive, so much strong. in such a way that whatever anybody else says on the outside, you know, their words or their actions even, they are not going to impact you that much, because your vision is so real. What you are convicted about is so real in such a way that no matter what anybody says on the outside, you know, you in fact you feel pity. I strongly believe that Jesus was able to say, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. Because his victory on the cross and his resurrection was so real, you know, in such a way that he was realizing that, what are they trying to do? You know what I mean? So I think build your inner man, you know, work on your inner man, and then you will see the outside voices of criticism will not affect you that much.
That much.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
Practical application of what you just said, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm so thrilled to really have this conversation with you. How
Sure.
does this look like in a world of social media?
Oh my
where there's quite a lot of excess,
Yeah.
where people, nearly said Tom, Dick, and Harry,
Yeah.
but it is a podcast, I'm
Yeah.
not at church. So any Tom, Dick, and Harry can just post whatever they want and
Yeah.
just begin. I think one of the tricky things about our generation is that there's too much excess,
Yeah.
where one can't differentiate between fake news and
Yeah.
back in the day, recently we were celebrating Unokolo Grootboom,
Yeah.
one of the legends of reporting and journalism.
Yeah.
So you would know when it comes to news, it's SABC, ETV, like traditional news. But
Yeah.
now with online, anyone can post whatever. Anyone can, even a junior can speak about someone like you,
Yeah.
who's a senior to us, and seniors, and say whatever. How do you now intentionally as a leader begin to protect your space, specifically in social media, against criticism and offense and pressure and all these different things that are happening on the streets of social media?
Yeah, I think first of all, as a leader, you need to develop a disciplined life, in a sense that you need to first answer the question, why are you on social media? So that if you can answer that question, it will determine what you post online, what you say online. Because people are on social media for different reasons. Because once you're on social media, it's a public space, one. And two, you are going to be subjected to scrutiny. You are going to be a thesis for somebody else. You are going to be, people will just have a right to, and you can't then say, no, but you can't say this about me, because, you are out there. But to minimize that, because it's impossible, let me emphasize this. It's impossible for you to protect yourself from criticism. Look, there's, in any person, every person, there'll always be something to be criticized.
Wow.
Whether you are Jesus Christ, whether you are the president of this country, whether you are Barack Obama, any person that can be subjected to somebody else's scrutiny, that person has a right to criticize you in whichever way they want. So start by saying, okay, I'm on social media, I'm a public figure. In other words, I'm just putting myself out there. But what do I post there? What do I put? For an example, I've developed a discipline in my life that I don't post things that are too personal. I wouldn't post a picture of my house. There are certain things that I will not put out there. You know what I mean? And that helps in a way to say, then I will not be, because sometimes you will post to say something and you're outside your house, and somebody will deliberately ignore what you're saying and comment about their house. So minimize such things by just, checking what content are you going to post out there, because people are going to say whatever that they want to say, and the question is, can you handle it? And somebody can say, no, look, I don't mind posting my house. If you don't mind, make sure that you can handle the criticism that is going to come with it. And secondly, don't entertain anyone who says something. Everybody has a right to say whatever that they want to say about you. But the onus is on you as a leader not to entertain each and every single person. Sometimes it even helps not to go through the comments. Talking about Nehemiah in the scriptures, one of the things that was something painful was that these things were said to them in their ears. You know what I mean? But can you imagine if they were not hearing what people are saying about them? it was even going to be better. So sometimes I post things on social media for the sake of posting them.
Yeah.
So if somebody comments, sometimes I will realize maybe after 3 months that, oh, there was such a comment in my post, and I'll be fine. At least life goes on.
I love what you're saying, because I think it's something that I always often say as to how the reason you hear them is because you're too close.
Yeah.
If you are a bit far away from them, it won't affect you.
Yeah,
And certain people don't even have relational currency to hurt you.
Yeah.
Unless you give them that currency
Yes.
and that access
Yes.
to hear
Yeah.
and to learn. There's something I just want to double click, which I think is very key, which you said.
Sure.
Within posting, avoiding posting personal things. And I'm going to balance this with vulnerability. I think one of the things within leadership, especially when leading teams or organizations, I think it's true. I never said apparently, but I believe it's the reality in terms of how you need to be vulnerable, you need to be open, you need to be transparent as a leader, so that you can be able to impact the people that you lead. Where do you now draw the line between being too vulnerable? I'll give you an example. You're dealing with something, you're still struggling with it because you're not too sure. I want to help this person, but you're not too sure how it's going to be perceived. How maybe two tips, if you do have, as to how can a leader go about being vulnerable to facilitate transformation, but at the same time not being too vulnerable so that it comes across as weakness.
Yeah, I think it's number one to be able to draw the line, because like you said earlier, we wear different hats as leaders, and I think then because of that, transparency and vulnerability means different things in all of those spheres. I'm in a church when I'm being transparent and open and vulnerable. I wouldn't, do it in the same way I do it in my family. You know what I mean? Because there are certain things that I can't open up in the public domain. When I'm at church, there are certain things I can open up. Let's say, for an example, I always, when I speak to young pastors, and I say, well, I'm young myself. But when I'm, there are some pastors who are just starting out and they always look up to me and they say, but, what can you say about this? And I always say to them, no, look, the first, for me, a golden rule is, let's say, for an example, there's a lady at church who is going through stuff, and they need help. Much as I would love to help and say, I want to be there for her or whatever, I wouldn't, say, come to my house so that we can talk. And, no, I wouldn't do that. I will see them at church. At church, I'm open, I'm transparent, they can come to me. It's still me. But when I'm saying to them, let's go home, then that might not be a good thing. And sometimes, let's say, for an example, this lady is so excited about the meeting we've just had, and she posts that I was with Pastor Msipha at home. The man of God is helping me out. You see, I'm already opening a can of worms. So for me, it's all about drawing lines to say, okay, here I'm at church, and this is how I handle things within this space. And I need to be open, of course. I need to be accessible. But you can't say, if I'm accessible and you can find me anytime at church, I can say, come and see me. Then you mean you can give me a call at 11 p.m. As a woman and call me seeking for help. And then you say, no, you are a leader. You must be transparent. You must be open. No. So it's all about drawing the lines. And secondly, making sure that you develop healthy relationships around you. So that you can be covered and protected in some of these things.
Sir.
I say, the kind of access that you can gain in my life, it will also depend on the kind of relationship that we have. There's a point where if, we are not relating at a certain level, of course, the access is going to be limited as well. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Let's speak to the role of courage. The role, which is something we teed off our episode, we started it off, which I think a lot of leaders, we're scared, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
What role does courage play in the life of a leader?
Yo, man, courage. I think you need it every day when you're a leader, because for me, leading is about pioneering. You will always venture into spaces that no one has ever tried before. You will always be challenged, especially, me being a Christian, always challenged by God to do certain things that, are daring, So unless you have courage on the inside of you, because number one, you need courage to start, to step out in faith and say, okay, I want to do such and such a thing. And even in the middle of it, when you've started now, it's also going to be challenging, because, I mean, even if you are doing the right thing, it does not mean you are not going to be faced with challenges, opposition, and so forth and so on. So sometimes you will do the right thing and then the opposite will happen. So courage has got to be there through and through, because as a leader, I'm sure you can relate to this. There's no time where you are comfortable and you're saying all is well. You're always thinking on your toes, always thinking, this is about to, go wrong. If you are leading in business, if you are starting out as an entrepreneur, let me put it like that, every end of the month requires courage, especially if you have employed people. You've got to pay people, you've got to, it's a risk. Almost everything that we do has got some elements of risk. So you've got to be intentional with making sure that you feed your courage, and develop it, work that muscle all the time, because you are going to need it. Like I said earlier, criticism is going to be with you all throughout. So you've got to build that inner courage on the inside of you so that you can neutralize any negative force that comes from the outside.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. Courage to start. So it's just an ongoing, in different seasons in your life, you just need courage. Yeah, you just need courage, because at some point, God does not just, leadership is a journey, remember. And it's a marathon. It's one that is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You are not going to be there just like that. So sometimes, even though there is a major project that God is dealing with in your life, but there are other minor projects in different seasons that will eventually take you to the main thing. So, and each time in different phases, there's always going to be a new thing that you're supposed to do. It's like we started a church in Delmas that was all and good. I mean, for more than 10 years, and it was, doing well, growing, and I was very happy, content that we're having something that works here. Until God puts it in my heart to say, start a church in Benoni. Now, that was a totally different ball game, different province. Nobody knows me there. It's an urban area. Courage again to start, and it was okay in Delmas. We started in a shack. We went to a back room somewhere, but now we are in an urban area. You can't be in a garage. You've got to now step out and say, and they tell you about huge rentals. So courage is needed even at that time. So in different phases, you will definitely need courage. Yes. Would you say courage grows do you get more courageous as you apply courage?
I think so. I think it grows. It depends on, because if you can also see, God starts you off with simple things, like even though, God has got this major plan that I said earlier about my life in terms of maybe my role as a leader in the church. But God started me with something simple in Delmas, small, that I could start in a shack with 4 people, no band, nothing. Just, it was fine for us to clap hands. A little bit of courage was needed there because I was starting out. But the more, you grow and you do other things, you realize that, I'm more courageous than I used to be back then. There are certain things that I was not even going to think about back then. I mean, just another example about this, when we had to trust God with buying our first property as the church. Man, I tell you, let me put it this way. I had faith to trust God that God will be able to do this. And we stepped out in faith, put up an offer to purchase. They accepted the offer to purchase. And when that happened, that faith disappeared. It was only courage that had to kick in and say, no, you can still do this, and it was a very scary thing, because when they accepted the offer, they said in 30 days, we need the balance, which was not a small amount. So, and now, because we conquered that, now it's easy for me. There's a building right now that we want to purchase, a church, which will cost us about 10 million. Now I'm no longer, that fear is no longer there. I'm okay. I think I'm good. I'm saying we can do this. God can do this. You know what I mean? So I think your courage, like I say, as you are building as a leader, God is building you as well.
Wow. Yeah. This is brilliant. Maybe as we bring in our plane for landing, we've got a lot of young leaders and listeners and different entrepreneurs, pastors, leaders in their families. what would you say to someone who's young? Now, this is an older voice. I know you also regard yourself as young.
Yeah.
And I always say he's one of the coolest pastors that I know.
Aye.
What would you say to someone who's young and starting out in whatever sphere?
Yeah.
What do they need to know? What's the one thing that you wish you knew 10, 15 years back that would have upscaled your leadership currently?
Yeah, well, I can simply say, begin with yourself.
Okay.
My leadership philosophy is, taken from the word lead as an acronym. It's a life of excellence, advancement, and diligence.
Wait, podcast family, I'm sorry, this is pure gold. I don't want you to miss that. So the acronym of lead, it's live.
It's a life of excellence, advancement, and diligence.
Wow.
Yeah. So that, for me, that's leadership. So the first thing that you start with is your own life. If you can lead your life, you can lead around you.
This is beautiful.
So it begins with, because that's where you develop the discipline of leading. So start with your own life, the life you lead, because we always, I love it in English because that's how we phrase it. We say the life you lead.
Yes.
Instead of saying sometimes the life you live.
Yeah.
The life you lead, the kind of values you've adopted along the way, the disciplines, because like for an example, I am a Christian. There are certain values that I need to uphold in my life, certain disciplines that I need to develop. For an example, the discipline of waking up to pray every morning, doing devotions. That's me as a Christian. I've got to read the word. Those disciplines to say, on my own, am I sticking to those things? Am I able to control myself? Am I able to influence myself? Am I able to take, introspection, self-introspection, and say, I haven't been praying that much lately. I haven't been reading can I get myself back? Because before you can influence somebody else, you must first influence yourself. If you can't influence yourself, forget about it, because your leadership is what you model more than what you say. We don't really take what you say that much. We look at also what you do. You can be effective in influencing other people, which is what leadership is all about. Influencing other people. You can only do that if you become what you say. In the religious world, we say preach, practice what you preach, And then, of course, excel excel in what you do. And for me, excellence is take the little that you have and do your best with it. For me, that's excellent. It sums up excellence. Many people have got different definitions of excellence, but for me, it says take the little that you have and do your best with it. Stretch it to the maximum. Even if you've got a small opportunity at work, excel. Even if you are a sweeper, a personal assistant, a secretary, an administrator, whatever position you hold. If you want to grow as a leader, just excel. Simply, when you are given that opportunity. Many people wait for big opportunities before they take them serious, and which is a bad habit. Because the more you do things in a certain way, you develop a habit along the way. So if you are not going to take what you are doing serious, you will be surprised after 3 years the amount of habits you've picked up, and it will be difficult to unlearn. So there are certain disciplines that I developed early in my life. My wife always tells people, when we're around, to say, this man wakes up. I've got crazy sleeping patterns because of the amount of work that I need to do. But it did not start now, after I have all of these responsibilities around me. It started when I used to stay at home alone, unmarried. I used to spend hours working on my gift, working on the content. I always tell people the content I preach today was developed back then. Those hours, I used to spend 16, 18 hours a day developing content, writing, reading, watching videos, studying churches, visiting different churches, learning from leaders, sitting down with leaders, and just to interact like what we're doing. I used to sit, and if there's one thing that I intentionally did, sorry, I'm taking too long.
Please.
If there's one thing I intentionally did, was to go for the senior leaders. It was scary, but I dared senior leaders to say, I will hunt your PA, I will find your PA, I will make an appointment, I will insist, I will come. I remember one highlight I went to see, and this is not a secret, I know he won't mind me mentioning his name. I made an appointment with Bishop Musasona early in the years of my calling. I said, sir, can I just have 30 minutes of your time? Just want to sit down with you, ask a couple of questions. I'm a young aspiring leader. pastor, and I admire you very much. So can you afford me 30 minutes? After a long to and fro with the PAs, I eventually secured the 30 minutes, prepared myself with a notebook with all of the questions I was going to ask. Guess what? When I got there, he canceled out all his appointments for the day.
Wow.
We sat for 4 hours interacting because I was coming strong.
Wow.
So make sure that you spend hours developing yourself. Even before you have any serious position, excel in it and make sure that and you will realize that you will learn a lot of skills along the way. Many things that I do today, they were self-taught. You know, I can develop websites, I can do video editing, I can do sound, I can write books, I can do almost anything that is happening at church because I had to teach myself. And of course, advancement, there's got to be progress in your life. You can't be stagnant as a leader. You've got to read, you've got to advance, you've got to see somebody who does better than you. And so that there can be movement. You know, don't be stagnant as a leader. You need to be. They always say that, you know, the devil does not aim at the moving target. Once you are stagnant, once you are in one place, then you are giving him that shot, and he will go for you. Wow. And be diligent, of course. It's hard work. Leadership is hard work. Yeah. Be diligent. Sometimes balancing between being a husband, wife, husband, pastor, father, entrepreneur, and all of those things. It can be hard. Yeah. So it's hours and hours and hours of work. So develop a good work ethic early in time, because you're gonna get busy, and you need to balance out. That's why I wake up at a very awkward hours. You know, my hours of becoming productive are between 2 and 6 a.m. in the morning. You know, I'm up by 2 in most cases, and I work on myself, I read, I write stuff, so that by the time the kids are up, I need to switch back, become a father, take them to school, and then, you know, from 9, I'm a pastor, I go to the office, and when I come back from home, I need to be a husband as well, you know, so you need to learn how to structure your day properly and be diligent, because it's hard work. That was long, sorry.
No. We're better for this. This is so incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm actually just listening and taking in everything that you're saying, and I'm so glad that you're pouring out your heart, and I'm so thrilled that you've been able to give us this time with you.
Thank you.
As we now literally land our plane, just a fun round, a quick fun round. 5 questions I'm going to ask. Fill in the blank. The first one, leadership is. If you were to use one word, leadership is, using one word.
Leadership for me is inspiration.
Inspiration.
Yeah.
Leadership is inspiration. Favorite old school jam.
Are you sure?
Please don't say candy shop, but candy shop, I think, behind the camera.
Yeah.
For you guys, I'm not sure. Favorite, please, no judgment.
You know what? Any jam by Boys to Men, you would have reached me. Any jam by Boys to Men within the R&B space, because I was a DJ, by the way. So music for me is life. Yeah.
Oh wow. Boys to Men, that's quite interesting. Favorite clothing brand?
Armani Exchange.
Armani Exchange. Incredible. If you were to relocate to a different country, which country? I'm gonna say country, then I'm gonna say province.
Okay.
Let me start with province, then we'll do country.
Okay. All right. Let's start province, KZN.
Oh.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Obviously.
We're actually having a conversation.
My wife always says I scare her each time I talk about KZN. Yeah, but if I were to move.
Just side note, KZN, we're actually having an off-record conversation with the guests that we're having. All our wives are from KZN.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, gentlemen, it's the place to go.
Yeah, you'll never go wrong.
Definitely.
Country, the US.
The US.
Yeah, specifically Orlando, Florida.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cats or dogs?
None. I'm not a pet guy.
You're not a pet guy. Your teenagers have not given you a problem as yet.
We are fighting as we speak now. One wants a dog, one wants a cat.
Okay.
But I'll get them.
We'll have a conversation later. He's gonna be a returning guest, definitely. So for now, he's not a pet guy, but I'll ask him again next time. Last question. Favorite car?
Man, that's a tricky one. Give me a Mercedes-Benz anytime, any model, any make, but give me a Mercedes-Benz anytime, I'm happy.
You're happy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think this has really been incredible. Your parting shot, and where can and you're definitely going to link it in the bio. It's got incredible books and material that you have.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to convince him to create a podcast. He's got a YouTube channel which has amazing content from him, because he really has so much wisdom that he has to offer. So where can our podcast family and audience and viewers, wherever they're consuming the content, be able to connect with you more and some of the things that you are currently working on that will add value to them?
Yeah, of course, I have a personal Instagram page. That's actually where most of my stuff and interactions happen. And I do have a Twitter account that I use sometimes. So, and all of them are at Jacob Msipha.
The Instagram, it's not Builder's Diary, is it Mondays where you have
It's Builder's Edge.
Builder's Edge.
Every Monday at 10.
10
Builder's Edge, and it's 10-15 minutes of just charging people up for the week.
Okay.
So every Monday 10 Builder's Edge, and we do have a church's podcast, Builder's Church, where most of our sermons are there, and some of my teachings, and I'm going to take you up on that encouragement and start my own personal podcast where I'll share different content in it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'd appreciate it's a need. You really have so much to contribute to us, and we are better because of you.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's really been an amazing episode. So podcast family, thank you for being part of the episode till the end. I encourage you to head over to www.mzwandilemakakula.com to be able to download the episode notes, which are a great tool for application. And I encourage you to also, if you're a leader, to listen to this with your teams and pass it on to the next person. Remember to subscribe and rate the content wherever you consume it. It helps us reach more leaders. So till we meet again next time, let's continue to change the world one individual at a time. And I challenge you to ensure that in whatever sphere of leadership you are in, that you take your lead.